Powered by GoGoat Sports and in partnership with TSN. Happy New Year, everybody. Wish you the best in 2022. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 15 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Man, Bruce Boudreau, the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks, has had such a positive impact on that organization. He's been making his rounds. Always fun to chat with Bruce, and he will join us here in Episode 15 coming up shortly. Ray, we've been telling our fans to give us a follow on Instagram. Basically, since the start of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, we're still at Ray and Dregs on Instagram and Twitter, and we've been giving away a bunch of those sweet Canadian Club holiday sweaters, which you and I love. We've worn them a couple of times now, right?
Yep. And as I've said to you before, it's your best look. I'd go with it today if I were you. Well,
right now, big congrats to Kevin Ritchie in Winnipeg. He also scored a free haircut for a year. Wonder how much. We need a picture of Kevin because, you know, for somebody like me, I need a haircut every 3 weeks. Maybe Kevin needs a haircut every 3 weeks.
Maybe he's like me. You don't need one every 3 weeks.
Maybe he's entirely bald. Then what do? Do you go there and get your scalp rubbed and you get the lotions rubbed in? What happens?
Why not? It's heat time, man.
It is heat time. It is at Tommy Guns. So congratulations to Kevin Ritchie. And starting this week, we're giving away an autographed Ray Ferraro Whalers sweater on our Instagram account. So you want to get on that and follow us at Ray and Dregs for all the details. When did you sign that bad boy? Is this vintage? Is this way back when?
No, this is relatively recent.
Okay, it still matters. It's still cool.
Well, best logo in sport.
Yeah.
Love it. That's amazing. All these years later, we always talk about it, but we literally always talk about it, like how popular that jersey is still. Yeah. I mean, the Whalers haven't been a team for 20 years.
Well, you amazing. See, you watch Insider Trading on TSN on a regular basis, or whenever Pierre LeBrun, our colleague, is doing something TSN related, his home studio has the big Whalers wooden logo, which is equally cool. You know where he got it from? I don't know if this is going to disturb you or not. The O-Dog gave it to him.
Where would O get it? He certainly didn't make it unless it was a table.
Well, I'm just hoping that it's not from the O-Dog collection of way back in the day. He wouldn't give up something like that. Like you're charitable. You're signing a Hartford Whalers sweater, but if you pulled something from your days with the Whalers, you're not giving it up.
But here's the thing. O's a collector. I'm not.
No.
I'm not a collector, but when I see that Whaler thing behind LeBrun, the only thing I think of is behind the Whaler logo.
Right.
Is a big bottle of Barolo holding up the logo.
There's a picture of Wayne Gretzky. I mean, just the name dropping that goes on in that set is like, it's ridiculous. Like, yeah. I mean, the Canadian Club bottle up there. Hold on a second. I'm going to move there. So it's right there. See it. It's very nice.
Yeah.
That's different, right? I mean, we have a partnership and they're good people at Canadian Club. Not that Wayne isn't, but you just tell from LeBrun that he's name dropping through all this. We've got headlines coming up shortly, and there's a fair bit to talk about around the National Hockey League, including the Winter Classic, which always seems to be a success. And when you fight the elements, that makes it more appealing. But we're not going to linger on this, but man, you and every Canadian, every hockey fan, traditionalist who loves the time of year and everything that goes into the World Junior Hockey Championship must have been deeply disappointed at what the IHF, Hockey Canada, the federations had to do, and that was unfortunately to cancel the World Junior. So your experience there, and I guess it was pretty obvious when the cases started to come through, even though they were limited initially, that the cancellation looked like it was inevitable.
Well, it actually started before the tournament, Dregs, when one of the pre-tournament games was canceled. And so you kind of looked at it with a crooked eye a little bit. And what we know from this new variant, or newish variant, is that if somebody in your close circle gets it, then look out.
Yeah.
It's gonna race its way through. There was only one way this tournament was gonna make it, and that would have been if the players were in a bubble.
Yeah.
Now, in late November, the IIHF and Hockey Canada, the Edmonton Organizing Committee, and the federations met And some of the federations, Dregs, thought the restrictions were too tight. This was in late November.
Yeah.
By December the 8th, the NHL started to cancel games. And as the medical doctor on the cancellation Zoom call said, then you're playing catch up. And when you're playing catch up, you're just not going to make it. And so when one team, I think that maybe the Czechs had to forfeit first, and then another team had to forfeit. Pretty soon, you were getting to the point that it was just a bunch of games and not a tournament.
Yeah.
And so it was a shame for all those kids that work so hard and dream so much to be in that tournament. It's a shame for the people, the volunteers that help put that tournament on, and the organizing committee. But at the end of the day, Dregs, it was they needed a wider view. Unfortunately, they needed to have the players in a bubble. They could not have interaction and expect that it was going to go off without a hitch.
No, fair. And then, just to kind of wrap up the experiences of the World Junior Hockey Championship.
Oh, yeah, it was minus 35 all week in Edmonton, too.
Yeah. I mean, you guys were stuck. But Team Russia tries to get on an airplane to go back home. And for the most part, you're talking about underage teenagers, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about. Not legal drinkers here. But they run into all kinds of problems. And this became national news, right? They're on the plane, then they get kicked off the plane. Allegedly, somebody with the group, sounds like an adult, was vaping on the plane. He was doing all kinds of craziness. Do those stories in any way, more tarnish the event beyond what Omicron and COVID and the pandemic already did?
Well, I don't think so. And the reason I say that was when the Russians got kicked off their flight in after their gold medal win in Buffalo, I think it was in 2011. Did that tarnish the tournament? Yeah. No, it tarnishes the Russians. It tarnishes those people that are involved. And so I can look at the Russian team and go, man, what the hell is going on with those kids? Yeah. But I look at the adults that are supposed to be in supervision. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Like, what are they letting a bunch of kids jump on a flight where they've clearly had something other than orange juice to drink? They're unruly. The adults are in the front and they don't give a damn what's going on. Like seriously, like so they kicked them off the flight.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
And so, I feel badly actually for the other passengers that had to wait there for 2.5 hours to clean up these clowns and get them off the plane and get all their luggage off. I mean, it's a big job. Yeah. And, they were going to Frankfurt. And if you've ever flown to Europe, Frankfurt is a destination because it's the hub for a lot of airlines, and you drop in there and then everybody scoots to different places. So I'm sure everybody had a hell of a day thanks to that event.
Well, power of social media, right? Hey, you know what? We saw it twofold. There were passengers on that flight who were tweeting about what was going on with the Russian team. So that's the negative side of it. Not that, hey, that's their experience. They want to make it public. Good on them. I'd do the same thing. I'm there. I'm experiencing it. The positive, though, quick thought on Red Hamilton and the Vancouver Canucks. And by the way, we've got Bruce Boudreau coming up on the podcast. They put out Red's letter seeking, he wants to find the woman who, indicated that he had something on the back of his neck, a mole that didn't look right. And, she goes to the lengths of literally tapping it out on her phone and showing Red. He reads it. He gets the doctors to look at it. And long story short, may have saved his life. He didn't know it was there, right? And so the power of social media comes together. And I give the public relations people of the Vancouver Canucks credit because they reached out to all of us, right? To say, can you just repost this? We need to get the word out. Man, what was it? An hour or less between Seattle and Vancouver, the Kraken and the Canucks, and they've tracked this woman down. I mean, what
the toughest part. Story. The toughest part was she was in bed because she had worked an overnight shift at crisis prevention, and just think of the fate, though, Dregs, for Red being helped here by this woman. So he goes to the game. He's doing the thing. And her seats happen to be at that side of the bench. What if their season tickets are at the other side of the bench?
I know.
What if they're on the other end of the rink? Then somebody else is sitting there who's not a med student, who doesn't maybe even notice, right? And then by the time she gets out of bed, she's got a bunch of text messages and her mom's trying to get in touch with her. And it turns out that, they were able to get to this mole that Red had on the back of his neck. He's an awesome guy, by the way. And they were able to take care of it. And fortunately, it was at a stage where he's clear, and just a remarkable feel-good story.
Good.
And also to the Canucks and the Kraken, who each put $5,000 into a $10,000 scholarship for her medical costs.
Yeah.
I thought was just an incredible touch by them.
A really wonderful gesture. Good story to get us going here in episode 15. Headlines presented by our good friends at Boston Pizza. Ray, do you know that Boston Pizza has over 50 different menu items? And I wouldn't say, look, you and I have traveled around the world. I wouldn't say we're particularly picky, right? I mean, you go to a restaurant. No,
you're not picky at all.
Oh, I mean, you just put a bowl of something in front of me and clearly
off it goes.
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah. It's over. But look, our family members, I know my son Mason, my daughter Katie, they have diet issues. Both need to be gluten-free. So guess what? Go to Boston Pizza. Boom, boom, boom. There it is. Over 50 different menu items. You can get it picked up. You can get it delivered to your home. Just let Boston Pizza do all the cooking tonight, as we have on different occasions.
Yeah, no need to argue over it. You got 50 choices. I mean, anybody can find something they like. Me, Dregs, pizza every time.
It is.
I'm going to Boston Pizza. I love it. I'm going pizza.
I don't know if the pickle pizza is still on the menu. If it isn't, just try it. Use it as an appetizer. Get a small pickle pizza.
Okay, you got one pizza to order. What are you ordering?
The Meteor, and it's not even up for debate.
Really?
Yeah.
Sad.
It's got lots of meat, spicy sausage on there. I load it up with the hot banana peppers.
Really?
Every single time.
Yeah, you're eating it by yourself. Nobody's sharing that. Ham, pineapple with red pepper.
Pineapple on a pizza, for the love of God. What are we doing?
Yeah. Well,
sacrilege.
I think it's important.
All right, let's kick off headlines. We talked to the top of the podcast about the World Junior Championship. Winter Classic. Quick thought from you here. I mean, it was frigid, right? I mean, the experience of what was it, 2004, the Heritage Classic in Edmonton came back to me because, we were there ringside and it was damn cold. It was nasty there, but, the players embraced it, as did Minnesota and the St. Louis Blues for this one. But the one thing that I'm always, and look, I equate it to the All-Star, Ray. I don't know if you do or not. I look at those events differently now. Now, the Winter Classic is a legit game. These teams want to get the 2 points. They're there to play. It matters. All-Star, not so much. But that whole spectacle, those two spectacle weekends aren't for media. They're for the fans. They're for the people there and for the people at home. So since I've changed perspective on that, even for my couch watching everything that was going on at Target, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good event.
Well, it also changes, I think, a little bit, Dregs, in that, people around the league or cover the league, they say, oh, we've got too many outdoor games. It's not for the league.
No.
It's for the local market.
Yeah.
They put 40,000 fans in that ballpark that, as Matt Zuccarello said, they're out here freezing their ass off. And, it was so cold. By the way, as I was watching, I'm like, there's an old saying gets used a lot about in a locker room, say a star player on the other team, they're like, get the body on him. He doesn't like to be hit. Yeah. Nobody wants to be hit at any point. Trust me. Nobody says, hey, I hope I get hit 5 times out there tonight.
No.
When you go out in minus 30 temperature, I can't even imagine what it feels like. Or if you get a slash on the end of your fingers.
It's gotta hurt so bad.
Oh, like I was watching that and I'm like, yeah, that one hurt. Like when the puck gets blocked and it doesn't bounce anywhere, that means generally it hasn't hit very much padding. It's hit body. Yeah. That does not feel good. I thought it looked like when the Wild came out of that lodge at the end and they skated up the little stretch, I thought it looked amazing. The visuals were spectacular. And man, Jordan Kyrou, we'll talk about him later. He put on quite a performance and
really did.
Really cool. I love the outdoor game.
All right. What's up with the Minnesota Wild? There should be lots of positives, excuse me, right, based on the points that have been accrued. Right. They've gone through the adversity as every team in the NHL has. There was a lengthy break, all of that. Dean Evison gets his contract extended, which is also richly deserved, well earned, but they seem to be in a funk, as Zuccarello kind of alluded to after that loss to the Blues, where he just basically said, we were garbage. What are you seeing in the Minnesota Wild, or more importantly, what aren't you seeing?
Well, I think what they're 0-4-1 in their last 5. I think it's just inevitable that every team is going to run through this every year, but in particular in this year, given the start and stop and the erratic nature of games. And man, there's no practice schedule. It's like, okay, wait a minute, we can have a practice, but we only got 9 guys eligible to practice, so it's a mess. They're missing Jared Spurgeon and Jonas Brodin. So they're missing their top pair on the blue line. So, guess what? Now for any team, you got problems. They've got guys in COVID protocol. So by the way, excuse me. So Spurgeon and Brodin Spurgeon's injured. Brodin's in the COVID list. He's eligible to come off, I think, this week. Right. Joel Eriksson-Ek, fantastic player, quiet and underappreciated. He's out with an upper body injury. So they're missing 3 of their best players. Yeah. Cam Talbot settled in a little bit after just a brilliant start. He got hurt in the outdoor game. So look, we touched on the Rangers earlier. The Rangers are going to go through this at some point, Dregs. They're going to go 4-1 somewhere. And the sky can't be falling each time it happens. The one thing that the Wild have and the Rangers will have is they got points in their pocket. Mm-hmm. It gives you a little bit of breathing room.
You mentioned Jordan Kyrou, so let's flip over to the St. Louis Blues. What a game he had at the Winter Classic. But it's the evolution of a young career, isn't it? The development of a skilled player. And, there's been a lot of talk with the Boston Bruins and whether or not DeBrusk is going to get traded. I know that look, Doug Armstrong and the St. Louis Blues historically have had a lot of interest in Jake DeBrusk, right? But when they were having quasi-meaningful discussions, Boston and St. Louis, Don Sweeney is looking at Jordan Kyrou as one of the young pieces that he'd have to get back in a DeBrusk trade. And Army, obviously, no, we're not doing that. At least not yet. I'm always impressed, and maybe you're less so because you played so many games in the league, at how management groups can identify a developing talent that maybe needs a little bit more time, but they're patient in that process, and they're not quick to go, okay, well, I don't know what he is. I don't know if he's going to pan out. I know what that kid is. I can see him play in DeBrusk, and he's going to make us better. They had interest in DeBrusk, but not at the expense of Jordan Kyrou, and maybe we're seeing why now.
Well, when you see a team, with all their scouts and their management team, I mean, that everybody's got a job to do, and it all goes down, it lands on the general manager's desk to make the final decision. But the St. Louis Blues drafted Jordan Kyrou. So their amateur scouts have reports on him as to what they thought he was going to be as a 17, 18-year-old when they drafted him. Mm-hmm. Then the pro guys take over, and they start evaluating what he is as a pro. And so they build and round and backfill those reports, and pretty soon you've got a better picture. When I look at a player like Kyrou, he's gotten a little stronger. Mm-hmm. He's gotten a little more determined, because when you're in junior and you're better than most people, you don't have to be determined. Yeah. You just have to get the puck, and then you can do whatever the hell you want. So the guys that become effective, they find another gear of, I hate to call it grit, but grit. You can grind in a little bit. You can dig in. You get heavier. You get stronger, but you still got that talent. Mm-hmm. And so Kyrou's now within, just a couple of goals, I think, of his career high, which he had last year. He's going to zip by all that stuff. What's he got? 32 points. I just marked it down. 32 points in 29 games. The kid's a burgeoning star.
Yeah.
And he kind of he gives that Blues team juice and speed. The Blues are not a fast team. They play quick, but they're not fast. Like David Perron and Ryan O'Reilly, I'm almost certain would win 0 skating races. Yet when they play together, they play quick, they play fast, they move the puck, they're smart. They get like David Perron seems to get better all the time. I don't know how he does.
St. Louis. Like why he ever left St. Louis. I mean, he comes back and he's terrific.
Well, you know what? There's a little story there too, Dregs, is that remember he had concussion issues really badly. Mm-hmm. And then when he came back, his game just fell off the charts. And so eventually the Blues said, it's not going to work. But then they bring him back. And it's like, man, St. Louis and David Perron, that's a fit.
While we're talking about young players and Jordan Kyrou and the St. Louis Blues, I want to throw another one at you because I know we're going to talk about this on Insider Trading on TSN and SportsCenter. And that is 23-year-old Jakob Chychrun, number 1 left defenseman for the Arizona Coyotes. And, you know, it was speculated on the media a month or so ago, maybe a bit longer, that teams were calling or he potentially is in play as trade bait. So this has taken a bit of time to develop, but I know teams are calling, several teams. I know offers are being made. What I don't understand, aside from, I'm going to say this, Chychrun has not asked for a trade from the Arizona Coyotes. Maybe it's been suggested that he doesn't really want to be part of another rebuild. I mean, he's only 23, but he's under contract at $4.6 million for this year plus 3 more. Can you imagine the package that it would take to acquire Jakob Chychrun? And if you're Bill Armstrong, isn't that a piece that you have to hold on to, Ray, in going through this?
Well, eventually you need players on your own team. I understand you've got a rebuild going on, but a rebuild means that you're trying to get better. Yeah. You've got a player that in Chychrun that is young and big. I mean, the guy's a moose, right? You can get around the ice. I question a little bit of his hockey sense, the way that he reads the game in the D zone. But, man, teams would trip over themselves for Jakob Chychrun. You mentioned the 3 years at 4.6 is really attractive. Really? And so that actually would drive the price up as opposed to his salary dragging it down. He's played over 300 games. I know this from playing on terrible teams. When you're one of the better players on a terrible team, that means you play a lot. Mm-hmm. And that means you get caved in a lot. And that's happening to him. Now, it can't be everybody else's fault. There's certainly some responsibility that goes to Chychrun, who's, had just a rotten year. I mean, he's minus 29. For whatever that stat means, he's minus 29 in 26 games. Like that's hard to do. Yeah. In Atlanta, our green jacket winner, which we call, it's a golf tournament. So you get a minus when you give up a goal against it 5-on-5. And our green jacket winner was Yannick Tremblay. I think he was minus 38. And so we had standings on the board at the end of the year in our players lounge. Masters final round, Tremblay minus 38, Brunette minus 34, Ferraro minus 33 or whatever the hell I was. So we had this tournament going. Chychrun is a runaway leader, and yet teams have to decide. You mentioned just on Chychrun, how do they decide what he is? Yeah. Because you've got to say this is a drag on him right now. It's a drag on, on the way he plays right now. But to go through a rebuild here, the problem Arizona has is they have stripped this down so far. You're not looking at 2 years or 3 years. No. I think Dregs, and I don't have the number, but I want to say they have 3 first rounders, 5 second rounders. Yeah. Like they got 10 picks in the draft. So they were trading players for these picks. Eventually you need players, and you need players like Chychrun. Yeah.
Well, that's why it's confusing for me. And it's going to be intriguing to see what sort of return. This could happen relatively quickly. My understanding is that's the intent in the next 2-3 weeks. We'll see if it materializes. But, and anybody who wants to invest in this, the Eichel return was thrown at me, which is no bunch. Chance. It's just a lot. And some close to Arizona, wonder if that's even enough. Well, if that's not enough, it's not going to happen.
Well, I'll tell you why when I said Dregs no chance is that Jack Eichel's a known commodity.
Yeah.
The question for Jack is his health and how will he play post-surgery once he gets back on the ice. There's still question for me about what Jacob Chychrun is or can be. And so if you're making that bet and you're blowing out first rounders, and because don't forget, Buffalo ended up with Alex Tuch, a legit middle six forward, legit. Peyton Krebs was a first round draft pick. They got a first round draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, think of that package.
It was a good amount.
Yeah. And so if you're another team, are you betting that on Chychrun?
Yeah.
Oh boy, you better be sure, man.
All right. For our Bruins fans, as we wrap up headlines, look, Tuukka Rask, he's going to sign with the Boston Bruins. Yeah. And it'll probably happen again sooner rather than later. Almost like making a big deal, isn't it? Like bringing Tuukka Rask back into the mix, and how do you fit him in?
Well, it's not going to be for a lot of money, right? Like that's...
No,
they can't. And you're not trading Jake DeBrusk for futures if you're signing Tuukka Rask.
No.
Like if you're signing Tuukka Rask, you're playing for today.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing for Patrice Bergeron's effectiveness in his career. Like you're playing for now. Mm-hmm. That's not a young team. So the guy that's going to take it in the teeth there is Jeremy Swayman, because he doesn't need waivers.
Yeah.
And, they've just signed Linus Ullmark for 4 years and 20 million bones, unless they can somehow work a deal out for him.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, they're not signing Rask to play 12 games.
No.
I think one of the most underappreciated athletes in their hometown in the last decade is Tuukka Rask. Bruins fans love to kick him in the ass. And I'm like, man, that guy has done nothing but win games and win games. Had he won the 2019 Game 7 against St. Louis, I don't think that would be the case. I think he would be thought of in a different light.
Those are your headlines presented by our good friends at Boston Pizza. Our interviews here, Ray, on Ray and Dregs are brought to you by Canadian Club Whiskey, who have asked all season long, are you over beer? Why not try a refreshing CC ginger ale with lime next time you're having a drink or watching a game? All right, Bruce Boudreau joining us on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. All right, you return to the National Hockey League to an NHL bench as head coach of the Vancouver Canucks during a pandemic, Bruce. You move across Canada. Number one, how good is it? How good does it feel to be back? And are you settled in? How big of an ordeal was it to get from one side of the country to the other?
Well, to the first question, it's you don't realize how much you miss something until you lose it, as they've said, and for a period of time. I've been lucky that every time I've been let go, I've been rehired like right away. So there's been no real drop. But time with the year and a half basically gone by, it eats at you. And so I was really lucky and happy to get back or give it one more crack anyway. And as far as getting settled in, I don't know if you'll ever get settled in. And if you live back east and you move to the west in the middle of the year, it's a difficult thing. Got an apartment that's furnished, but all your family's back home and they're making trips back and forth. So, but you know what, the hockey keeps you busy, so it keeps you going.
When you're out for the year and a half, as you mentioned, do you start wondering what you have to change or what you have to do because you want to coach still? I mean, I didn't think TV was your final gig yet.
I don't really have a face for TV, but you know what? They do a lot of bitching when you're out. And me and John would talk to each other all the time and say how wrong all these other people were. But, you reflect on all of those things, Ray. I mean, what did you do wrong? What what can you do better if you give it if I have one more chance, this is what I'm going to change type of thing. And those things go through your mind. And when you get a chance to do TV and watch a lot of games, you see all the way things are going, and quite frankly, you sit there and say, man, I used to do that. That's the wrong thing to do. So I'm going to change it a little bit.
So you found TV helpful for your coaching oversight?
Yeah, because you have to be, when you're an analyst, you have to sort of say what you think is wrong when the other teams are scoring goals and making bad plays. So the more you see it over and over and over again, you're going, wow, like that's a correctable thing that you got to focus on when and if you get back.
So you're sitting out and you're working TV. Now, are you starting to watch hot spots a little closer? You go, gee, that team's struggling, or maybe that team might make, like, do you start focusing in a little bit? It would seem to me like it would be inevitable that you wouldn't do that. You'd go, okay, maybe them.
Yeah, unfortunately, you do. Like, I mean, we're all lecherous guys that want to work, right? So, I mean, it started last year when Buffalo was going through. I ended up, as soon as they started talking about it, I watched every Buffalo game, thinking there might be a chance. And then this year, I mean, when the media gets a hold of it and starts talking about, there could be a change, and this, and you watched all the Montreal games and the Vancouver games, as many as you could watch, just in case somebody phones you and says, hey, do you know anything about our team? Or do you, I mean, you've been watching our team, and at least you can have some sense of saying that, of intelligence that yes, you do. And that's, so, I mean, I think all the coaches, I mean, if they say that they don't, I think they're all lying, because I think we all do that guys that want to get back to the game.
Yeah, and Bruce, you're one of those guys too. Look, I mean, you were born to be part of hockey in some way, shape, or form, and now you're in the coaching realm and have been for many, many years. But even veteran coaches like yourself have to be willing to take a step back. You haven't done that here. You're an NHL head coach, but you were willing to consider an associate job, right, with the Toronto Maple Leafs, or perhaps another opportunity if it came your way.
Listen, I just wanted to coach. I mean, I would have taken the Leaf job, assistant coach, in a heartbeat, if offered. I also, this year, when Spencer Carberry went to Toronto, I actually inquired about the Hershey job in the American League. And I mean, I lived in Hershey. I mean, it was a coach there before. It was a natural fit. The answer I got, though, was that you're probably going to get a coaching job this year at some point, and then we'd need to get another coach, which made sense to me. So, I mean, but absolutely, I inquired about it. I mean, I toyed around with the idea of being a part-time assistant for my son in Fort Wayne, just to be behind the bench and be with the guys and be on the ice at practice time. I mean, this was things I did, and instead I bought a friggin' junior team, and now you were working 24 hours a day trying to do the promotion part of it, but it was all so much fun. It was great.
What kind of owner are you?
I'm an owner that lets my wife handle everything.
Seems like a good decision.
You know what? It gets pretty bad in the sports world when I'm the eye candy. When I go around the games, the people just want to talk to me, but my wife does all the stuff, and my son he's the coach. So I mean, it works out well. I mean, I went a couple times on the ice with the guys, and then when things aren't going right or something, I'd come in and give a little dressing room talk. But other than that, being a former coach, or being at the time a former coach, Ray, the one thing we never wanted, was owners coming in and telling us what to do.
Right.
So I was really good about not telling our coaching staff in Hershey what to do. Let them do it on their own, make their own mistakes, and if they wanted some advice and they wanted to ask me a question, I'd answer it. But I'm pretty cognizant about knowing that how some managers and owners can be really too much in your face. It doesn't work that way.
So I'm listening to you talk about coaching in the game, and man, you must have missed it, Bruce, when you were away.
It's you have no idea when you do something, and you've been involved in hockey your whole life as well, but when you do something from the time you're 5 and you do it as a job from the time you're 20 for 45 years, it's really difficult to get away from it. I would still get up and during the pandemic and watch every game. As many as I could. Me and my wife would sit up and watch all the games, and we continued to do the same routine all the time. But absolutely missed it. I don't know, I don't know what I would do without the game, because I mean, I'll always be involved doing something in the game. I think until the day I can't do it anymore. Whether it's doing a little radio interviews or the TV or just owning the junior team, all of those things. I just I have a hard time actually talking to people after about 5 minutes if they're not going to start talking about hockey. My wife will say, "Okay, we're going to dinner with this couple," and I go, "I don't know that couple." And they say, "Well, come on, she's a friend of mine. Let's go out to dinner." And so after about 5 minutes, I'm going, okay, now you're an accountant. Now what? I have nothing to say. I don't know anything to say. It's all about hockey.
That's outstanding. I mean, we ask all veteran coaches this, but how have you changed, Bruce, as a coach over the years? Or is it just too broad an answer to get down to the detail? Or is there one or two things that you're very proud of that you've adapted and changed over the last 2 decades?
I would say from the beginning to now, it's the attention to the details of the game. I think I'm a lot better at it, a lot better as a defensive coach now than I used to be. It used to be all, let's just go out and win 6-5. That's how I wanted to play. Let's go, and let's be as offensive as we can and hope the goalie is really good. Now I sort of tend to go back to the Roger Nielsen philosophies of defense first type thing, but at the same time, trying to find like I never wanted to be known as an offensive coach now or a defensive coach. I always say, why can't we do both? Why can't we be both of those things? And instead of get pigeonholed into one of them. But I mean, I think that's the thing. And you know what? You learn about this game more and more every day. Like, I mean, I don't think you ever stop learning about the game, and every time you go to a different arena or you get a new coaching staff, I always ask them about the drills. I mean, you learn new drills every day from different people, and I think that really makes it exciting to come to work every day and seeing new things from different people and in the game. But I still keep to my philosophy is, and me and John Anderson talk a lot, and always to the point where, okay, how did you want to be treated when we were a player? And sometimes we weren't treated the way we'd like to be. So we want to make sure that we don't treat players that way. And it was, like it starts from, back in the 80s and 90s, you used to do the bag skates. If you lost the next day, you're an hour and 10 minutes on the ice just skating with no pucks. We thought that was the most useless thing in the world. So when we became coaches together, or when we would talk together, we would say, this is just counterproductive. We're never going to do anything like that. And sort of things like that, I mean, you more from the experience of playing and how you want it to be treated is something that I take a lot of pride in.
So you take over the Canucks, and, I live in Vancouver, and man, it had been a tough go here, and players were low. Morale was low. The fans were bitching and complaining about everything. What's your priority when you come in? Because whatever it is, you're 8-0-1. So I would say you're 100% correct.
Well, you know what? I just used the same formula, quite frankly,
Mm.
when I went into Washington and when I went into Anaheim, and both were last place clubs at the time. And I think the biggest thing they needed was confidence. I mean, there's some really good pieces to the game here, or to the team, and you're right, they were really low. And the first day I came in and just told them that how good I thought they were, and that they were good. And then I just got the video coach to go over positive stuff and positive thinking, and to do that. And then you're lucky enough, first game you win, and you come in and after you say, I told you, you're good. You're a good team. Keep that up, and everything being positive. And then the more positive stuff you get into, then they start believing in it. And belief, I think, is the biggest form right there of confidence. If you believe you can do it, you have a chance at being able to do it. If you don't believe you can do it, you're never going to do it.
You mentioned yesterday in an interview I read about some of the players you inherited here, and Thatcher Demko, you compared a little bit to John Gibson, and you get a closer look at Quinn Hughes. Who else has maybe caught your eye, or has it been a whole bunch of guys as you come in and now you're looking at them from 3 feet away?
Well, yeah, a whole bunch of them. But I mean, guys that you had a different view of, like, for instance, like Tyler Myers. Okay. He was booed a lot in Vancouver. In Winnipeg, we used to attack him. And when I got here and he started playing 25, 26 minutes a game, this guy was a horse back there. So, I mean, he played really good. JT Miller, he got traded from the Rangers to Tampa to here. And you knew he was a good player. I didn't know how good a player he was, but I mean, he can do it all. Like, I mean, he plays the penalty killing. He's on the power play. He's, last minute, he's face-offs with Bo Horvat. Him and they go back and forth taking them, but he competes his butt off. And I thought he was much better than I had anticipated being. But Quinn Hughes, probably more than anybody. I knew he was a good little player. His passing is as good as, it reminds me of a young Nick Backstrom passing the puck. Like, everything's on the tape and it's hard. And he's defending so much better than people gave him credit for. So, but you add that into a lot of the other guys, and that's what's made them so far a little bit successful. But I mean, the proof will be in the pudding, whether we've gotten it all back together or not by the end of next week, because we go to Florida and we play Florida, Tampa, Carolina, Washington, Nashville, Florida, and St. Louis in the 7-game stretch. So, I mean, if we can come out of that, and we play Ottawa before that, but if we can come out of those 8 games, with a 500 record or better, I think we've got a shot at the playoffs.
Bruce, you're sitting around this week because games got canceled, and you were in Seattle last weekend, Saturday. You didn't know your lineup until late because you were waiting for tests, and you end up with 7D. And like, how do you, I guess it's just the way it is, but how do you adjust and project to your team that, holy crap, our hair's on fire here, because every team's doing the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, but you know what? I think the experience of coaching in the East Coast League and really gets you, really makes it a lot easier for you, because let's face it, you guys get in those leagues, you lose players daily by the call-ups, and it's always at the last moment. So if you panic and say, oh my God, what's going on? You're not going to get anywhere. So you just have to just sort of go with the flow, and that's what it is. And I thought the game in Seattle, we had a few false positives too in the morning. I thought we were going to be like 10-5 for the game, and I would have went, well, this is really an East Coast lineup here. But again, you would think of the positives. How many guys on the fourth line, quite frankly, never play 15 minutes a game? Yeah. I would have given my eye teeth when I was finally get a chance to play those kind of minutes. So, I mean, I would look at it as a positive rather than a negative.
You're riding a high right now, Bruce, obviously, with how well the Vancouver Canucks have responded to your hiring and front office changes, bringing Jimmy in and all of that. But you also have been around Canadian markets for the better part of your professional life. So you know that there's going to come times in coaching the Vancouver Canucks where it's going to get a little testy.
I expected it a lot sooner than right now. Like, I mean, we've gone a month now and it's been a real good honeymoon, but it's going to happen. And those are the days where I've got to keep the guys really on an up keel and not let them get down to the places that they were, 2 months ago. So, I mean, that's going to be the difficult thing. You prepare for it. You hope it never happens, but it's inevitably happens to every team. So you just got to ride the winning ways as long as you can.
Have you downloaded that Bruce There It Is chant as your ringtone yet? You should.
No, like, I mean, you know what?
You should.
It's fun, I guess, but I mean, I don't like it because it makes it more about the coach, and it's got to be about the players. Everything's got to be about the players. So I try not to react at all when you hear it and that, but fans will be fans. And I guess as long as they're doing it, it means that we're winning. So, I mean, I'll take it. But again, I downplay it again because I don't want this at all to be about me. It's all about the guys doing the work.
Okay, you've only been in town a little bit. Have you looked at real estate yet? How's that going for you?
I watched the show Listed or Love It.
I knew it.
and for about $2 million, I can get a 600 square foot apartment. So I'm definitely in the rental department at this stage.
I got to ask you, because I was getting a treat out of your videos that you were putting out for fans, the cameos and the memos.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Are you now putting those on the back burner, or can we still request stuff from you?
Well, you can, but like, when somebody first suggested this to me in the summer. Okay. It's because I didn't have a job. I said, if they want to give me a call for a birthday wish or do the slap shot talk, I'll do it. Now when people are asking me, I gotta go, okay, I can't swear, I can't do anything, I gotta be prim and proper, because I forget that they can just retweet this stuff anywhere. And I just pretty well wish them happy birthday, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year, hopefully. And I feel like when I'm looking at myself doing this, I'm talking like Don Cherry now, and I gotta stop that as well.
Well, it has been entertaining. There's no question about that. Bruce, we know you're a busy guy. You've done a million of these. Continued success with the Vancouver Canucks, and we'll stay in touch moving forward. Thanks again.
Well, I appreciate it, and continued good work to you guys too. I watch you guys all the time. So have a great day, and we'll see you down the road.
All the best, Bruce. Thank you.
Oh boy, one of the good characters in the National Hockey League, just a fun guy to talk to and reminisce with. Bruce Boudreau, we'd like to raise a glass to Bruce for joining us today, presented by our friends at Canadian Club. How about the story, Ray, where he's talking about his wife? Hey, we've got to go out for dinner with this couple. She's a friend of mine. You can just visualize that, right? He's talking to the accountant husband, and in 5 minutes, he's like, I don't know what to talk to this guy about.
Well, and he's thinking, because you can hear his, obvious passion for the game, is that there's games on at home. I could be watching those games. Well, why do I want to be sitting here? We've all been to a dinner where 10 minutes in, you're like, I don't know about this one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? With somebody you don't know very well. And you're like, you got to dig, and it's a little more work or whatever. Bruce wants to talk about hockey. I think he made that pretty clear, didn't he? He loves the game.
We're so respectful of our guests' time, right? Because we all have lots of things to do, and podcasts are among them. But there are so many different ways we could have attacked that conversation. And one of them now is you're telling just how much of a character he is. I'm thinking to myself, automatically when I think of the HBO series this year, it was the Toronto Maple Leafs documentary, right? I mean, that original one with Bruce on the Capitals bench and the behind the scenes where she was a man courage. Like, I don't know. I would have loved to have played either with Bruce Boudreau or played for Bruce Boudreau just because of how animated he can be. But he sounds like, you talk about player coaches, right? And he touched a little bit about that too. He's a player's coach because he wants it to be a fun environment, but he's not a pushover either, right?
No, I think what I read out of him putting more focus on defensive play and detail is, if this is the right way to say it, he became less of a player's coach, which is, hey, let's score a bunch of goals, to, hey, we've got to work. We got to grind a little bit if we're going to win. And that would be some of his evolution as a coach. The other thing is, every time I see him talk, I think of, there is zero that he hides. Like, he is his authentic self. This is Bruce Boudreau. If you're sitting on a podcast, or when he's on TV, or if you're sitting in a pub somewhere, or you're, I don't know, anywhere with him. Yeah. He wants to talk about hockey. He loves the game. He's enthusiastic about it. And I don't know, just a great guest and an amazing start here in Vancouver. Amazing.
So here's a tease for rapid fire segment, which we do on our socials, presented by netcoins.ca, where you ask Bruce about Alex Ovechkin. One thing that the hockey world wouldn't know, and he describes Ovi as just being this big muscly guy, and he went back to and what?
So good.
Oh my God, I'm losing my marbles here. Bugs Bunny. What was the name of the?
When he's wrestling, the Mauler.
The Mauler.
The Mauler.
So we gotta. People in the podcast aren't going to understand why we're talking about that, but you have to check out Rapid Fire on our social channels at Ray and Dregs just to get a grasp of that. So, again, thank you to Canadian Club. Thank you to the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks, Bruce Boudreau, for joining us here in episode 15. All right, time to check in with Coolbet Kris Abbott from Coolbet.co, joining us here on the podcast, looking fresh. We're recording this here Tuesday morning, 9:45 a.m. Eastern. So for Ray Ferraro, looking just about as fresh. Just about as fresh.
Yeah, 6:45 in the morning here, Dregs. Come on.
You're an early bird, man. You always have been. I know it's not in the golf season anymore, but you like getting up early.
Play early? Fantastic. Come on.
So we are recording episode 15 here Tuesday morning. There was one NHL game played Monday night, the Oilers and the New York Rangers. And Chris, it feels like not just hockey fans, maybe the betting markets haven't quite caught up to these two teams, right? We're watching the New York Rangers do some pretty impressive things. Outside of Rangers fans, it doesn't appear like a lot of people are paying attention. Then conversely, you see what's going on with Edmonton, and Edmonton media have been talking about firing Dave Tippett and doing all kinds of aggressive moves to try and get the Oilers back on track. So how do those teams factor in when it comes to kind of setting the markets in the NHL?
Yeah, first, I think if people in Toronto ever want to know what the rest of the country sees when Leafs fans are panicking, just take a quick look at Edmonton right now, because hearing a lot of the same things out of there. But yeah, it's funny because Edmonton obviously started the season house of fire, and they were pretty much a favorite in every game they played. And if you just take that information that you were given at the beginning of the year, and that McDavid and Draisaitl are going to light it up every night, and they're going to get passable goaltending, and they're a playoff bound team, maybe a top of the conference team, and that just hasn't been the case here recently. Not to say that it won't be at the end of the day, but obviously, if you're betting game to game, you have to pay attention to these kind of skids, and the one that they went on here the last couple of weeks is certainly not good. So they were still a betting favorite on the road at MSG on Monday night. And a lot of people who know the sport kind of reach out to me and say, so what's going on here? Why are they still a favorite? This Rangers team has been hanging with the big boys. They've been doing really well. Probably, a lot of people were high on the Rangers last year, and maybe it was a little disappointing how the season played out. And I think now they're kind of rounding into what we've expected from them. So yeah, that was just that was one of those games on the board where it looked too good to be true, but it wasn't.
How long does it take for a market, like a betting market, to catch up to a team with perception early of greatness or crappiness to something that is a lot different? Because the reality often is not what people see when they first look at the game.
So in the NHL, it generally takes longer than the other sports. And that's because, percentage-wise, the NHL takes less betting action than the other sports. If something happens in the NFL, like as soon as the Cleveland Browns were eliminated from playoff contention, the line shifted to the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. The betting market reacted immediately. In the NHL, because there's less money, less focus, less cumulative number of bets placed on the NHL, it can take a little bit. It can take weeks, and I think that's what we're seeing right now. And I don't know how long that kind of value will stay there for the Rangers and or fading the Oilers. And then we'll get into a cycle where, hey, that's a great price on the Oilers. You got to take them. They're not going to keep losing. So, and that just keeps going on during the year.
Our guest later in the podcast is Canucks coach Bruce Boudreau, which will be entertaining as he always is. He entertaining and him just kind of go easy together. Now, when he took over, they were plus $1 billion to make the playoffs, right? And so, like, how long do those odds take to change? Because now, I mean, they're 8-0-1 under Boudreau, and they're in a far different place than they were 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, you have a hard time finding those odds offered by anyone right now because there's going to be some books that are kind of licking their wounds. Canucks have been written off, and obviously it's not just one team that sets those playoff markets; it's everybody around them. But yeah, they were 8-1 when the coaching change happened, and right now they're 3 points out of a wild card as we are recording this, and they're 10 points out of first in the conference, which 10 points is a long way. A lot of teams in between, but still, if you had got them at 8-1 to make the playoffs at the time, you'd be pretty happy. Saw them this morning 70-1 still to win the Stanley Cup, and that's a long stretch from making the playoffs. But again, talked about the Rangers maybe underachieving a little bit. We all know the Canucks had underachieved a little bit as well. So yeah, it'd be really fun to see what happens there. And yeah, another team, I bet on them in Seattle the other night, and I thought, this price is too good. Like this is an expansion team in Seattle missing one of their top players now, and also was a great spot. And I think sometimes the NFL, especially this time of year, or the NHL, gets lost in the NFL kind of shuffle.
Right.
Everybody's focused on college football, on the NFL playoffs. So sometimes these books are operated by humans, and sometimes the focus gets missed, and bettors can scoop in on that.
Well, we know when humans are in charge of anything, it's really an issue.
Yeah, that's a timely comment there. Absolutely,
it certainly is. We'll let you go with some thoughts on the NFL. I mean, if you look back even since Christmas at what the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing, I mean, is there a spread that is too high for this team as we move forward?
Well, I tried to talk myself into them last weekend, and I'm glad I did.
Why, Chris?
Well, they're playing the Patriots. It's a 17.5-point spread. I'm like, well, New England usually keeps the ball on the ground. Maybe they won't score that many points, but they got 50, 51, whatever they ended up with. And yeah, I mean, and that coming into this week, they're playing the Colts, who, I'd have on par with the Patriots, maybe better in some aspects of the game. And the spread's at 15.5 and climbing. And it's like, well, do you just take the Colts anywhere inside of 21? Do you take them more than 21? I think Trevor Lawrence threw his second passing touchdown in like 8 weeks or whatever the stat was. It was disgusting last Sunday. So yeah, I don't think you can give me a number high enough to bet on the Jacksonville Jaguars.
When you were talking about Jacksonville, I was thinking of the old Tampa Bay coach, John McKay, when they lost their first 26 games. And he said, we couldn't tackle anybody, but we made up for it by not blocking either.
Ray, it's right up there with my favorite quote about you, is that you were a liability at both ends of the ice.
Both ends, man.
Yeah.
When I go on the ice, somebody's got their arms in the air. just might not be your team.
And I think that was out of the mouth of Ray. Well, Ray or Al Arbor, right?
No, that was Jack Evans. That was
okay.
Dregs in my third game. A goal, 3 assists, -3. I mean, there were goals going in all over the place, man.
I mean, your number was all over the game sheet. It's outstanding.
My dad told me make an impact. And it
You
was.
certainly did. Yeah, very good. All right, Chris, thanks for joining us, buddy. There's a lot going on, and episode 16 is going to be chock full of all kinds of coolbet.co goodies.
Great stuff, guys. Thanks very much. Happy New Year.
Thanks, Chris.
Ask Ray and Dregs anything. Fire your questions our way on Twitter, Instagram, @Ray and Dregs, or on the website, rayanddregs.com. And Ray, we've got at least a few questions delivered via the website. So let's hit one of those, starting with Mike. Now, Mike starts by saying this may be a stupid question. Mike, you never say that. There's no such thing as a stupid question here.
Well, there kind of is, but you know.
Since the NHL is not going to the Olympics, could it be possible to send the Canadian junior team or even the USA junior team, since the games are supposed to be for non-pro athletes anyway? So he's awaiting our answer with bated breath. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen.
No, impossible to happen.
Yeah.
And the reason is, if you go to the Olympics, there's a great old line, just follow the money. If you go to the Olympics, all the revenue goes to the Olympic Committee, and that's where it stays.
Yeah.
The IIHF, I think it's been pretty clear over the last couple of weeks, has made it relatively obvious how important to their overall health and structure financially the World Junior Tournament and the World Championships are.
Yeah.
They're not, the IIHF, giving up their revenue to go to the Olympics. As much as we'd all like to watch it, not happening.
No.
0% chance.
And even if you look at like a Mason McTavish or a Cole Perfetti or an Owen Power, who I'm sure that Hockey Canada would love to have those players as part of the Olympic team, they can't even do that, right? Because as long as you're under a standard player contract, an entry-level contract, playing in the American League, wherever you're playing, you're still not eligible, at least according to the NHL.
Well, I guess Owen Power would be.
He would
at
be.
the University of Michigan.
Right.
But your point's well taken. There's a pile of guys that just would be out of the mix.
Yeah. All right. To Instagram from Sean Shannon. Coaches always talk about their systems, right? How many different systems are there? I mean, how many can we count?
3.
Yeah.
I mean, like there's, it's not like, put it this way, there's nobody in hockey that goes around with one of those wristbands like a quarterback has for all their plays. You're either forechecking with a 2-1-2, 1-2-2. You've got a more passive neutral zone, a more aggressive neutral zone. Defensively, you could do a few different things, but basically the game of hockey is, at its core, is read and react.
Yeah.
So most players have the skill. A real separator is their ability to, as I call it, read the scene.
Mm-hmm.
So read what they're getting into and then make the reaction quick enough to use their skill. That's a true separator for players.
All right. Twitter, on the coaching theme in episode 15 of Ray and Dregs, from the Mediterranean 10. When teams struggle, coach is usually the first casualty. Ray, how many retired players do you know said they believe a struggling team or the team in general had coaching as their number one problem?
Well, that were retired? Now probably all of them, because it can't be us, right?
Right.
However, Kurt Fraser was our coach in Atlanta, and Kurt could have had Scotty Bowman and I don't know, John Cooper as his assistants. And instead of winning 14 games, we might have won 16 because we were just no good. Like we could say, oh, gee, Kurt did this or Kurt did that. And he could have looked at any one of the 40 plus players we used that year and said, yeah, take a look at this collection.
Yeah.
So there is a cohesion though between the coach and the players that good players can make up for coaching that gets overwhelmed, I think, if the players are great enough. Because they're the ones on the ice, the execution is theirs. There's not many teams that are that great, though.
All right, final one. David Fung from Instagram. What would you give up for the chance to draft Conor Bedard? He's just saying, if you're general manager, you're the head of pro scouting, whatever. I mean, well, you're subscribing to Tank, I guess.
I mean, okay, so that means you're drafting at the top of the draft.
Yeah.
That means you have Bedard. Well, no, I guess it doesn't. It means you could be anywhere in the draft and you want to get in to the draft pick that you think is Conor Bedard.
Yeah. Top 2, 3.
I would say,
right?
Pardon?
Top 2, 3.
Top 3, stage. Because there's the kid in the USHL, Fantelli.
Yeah, really good.
There's Michkov, the Russian, and there's Bedard. I mean, that'll play out in the next year and a bit. But man, 3 exceptional talents at the top of the draft. I mean, Connor is an amazingly skilled player. Michkov, we saw at the juniors. Man, that guy scores falling out of bed. Mm-hmm. He's got a little Kaprizov in him, I think.
Yeah.
That's who I look at. The difference I just have to point out is Michkov has a 6-year contract in the KHL. So the quicker you're going to get him, the quickest you'll get him is at 23.
Yeah.
So if you feel that Michkov at 23 is worth waiting for and you've got him rated higher, then you'll probably draft that way.
Yeah, and teams.
If you don't, you're going to take Bedard.
Yeah, NHL teams that I've talked to, and I'm talking about 3 or 4 maybe, don't have an issue with the Michkov contract because they're like, right. He's playing pro over there. He'll develop fine. I think that's easy to say when you're taking him second or even third. Your first pick overall needs to be playing in the NHL sooner than later. No?
Yeah, but don't forget, Dregs, if you're taking him second, you suck too.
Yeah.
Like,
you're going to need a bit of time. Too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Ask Ray and Dregs anything. Again, you can send us your questions, Twitter, Instagram, @RayandDregs, or on the website, rayanddregs.com. As I teased earlier, check out Ray and Dregs' social channels this week for Rapid Fire, presented by netcoins.ca. Crypto made easy. Later this week, we'll have another Rapid Fire with Bruce Boudreau, the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. Little disappointed, Ray. We're recording this on Tuesday. Was supposed to have, I haven't done an NHL panel in weeks, right. And I'm not exaggerating. So Ottawa was to play Seattle on Thursday, was looking forward to that, kind of getting back into the grind. And it's been postponed. So more of the home office studio work for me for the foreseeable future. How about you?
Yeah, you know what you should be doing today? You should be watching the semifinals at the World Junior Tournament.
I know. Yeah, that sucks too.
But I got to tell you, 2022 is off to just a rousing start.
Oh, boy. Well, try living here in Ontario for all the Ontario's listeners.
Well, it's funny. You know what? Cammie and I took the kids to the movie Sing 2. Mm-hmm. The first one is awesome. The second one, we went to the theater yesterday. We watched it. It was great. We had a really fun night. And I mentioned to a couple of friends, hey, you got to watch this with your kids because they have younger kids. And they're like, yeah, we would go, but the theaters are shut.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah. There's a toll that's going to be paid for all of us. Again, not to get on our political soapbox, but I just look at my son, 20 years old, works out 6 days a week. Gyms are closed. It's right. A big part of the mental health and the routine of these young people, online, universities, all that stuff. Anyway, on that note.
Hang in, people. Hang in. Let's try and find some good.
You bet. Huge shout out to our partners who make the podcast possible, Coolbet.co. Chris Abbott joins us every week. It is the free-to-play sports and casino games website. Thank you, Coolbet. By our friends at Canadian Club Whiskey who are asking, are you over beer? By Endy.ca. Remember to use code RD75 to save $75 on a mattress. And by Boston Pizza. Pick it up, get it delivered to your front door, back door, side door, whatever you want. Let Boston Pizza do the cooking tonight. And a special thank you, as always, to you for listening, for sharing, for rating, and for following the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and for following us on the YouTube channel. That is it for episode 15. We're already feverishly planning episode 16, Ray, which you have promised could be, might be, likely will be the best of the season.
Yeah, promises.